Alright, welcome back to Whence, a Freemasonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. This is episode 148. Well, the news is, you guys can probably tell I have a little bit of a cold, so this episode isn't going to be as long as some of the other ones. I do have a couple great articles for this episode, but as far as the news goes, I just got back from Pennsylvania where I did the colonial presentation for Kingsbury Lodge in Oliphant, Pennsylvania. I had an amazing time. I do have to send out a very special thanks to Worshipful Brother Brian Evichin for the chance to come out and share some great information with the brothers, and also getting me to the airport on time, and also for all the driving you did. It was incredible. A lot of things out there are spaced out, and Brother Brian just drove me everywhere, so I have to send a special thanks to him for that. Also, special thanks to Brother Clinton Langford and his lady for the gracious hospitality and the meals that they provided, not to mention the guest bed. I had just a great time, and you guys were so awesome to let me hang out. Also, I need to say thank you to the brothers of Pennsylvania and all the members who came out. I just can't thank you guys enough. We had brothers from as far as Arkansas come to the meeting, as well as 4 districts around their lodge, and their deputies were also present, so it was just an amazing time. I got to meet so many brothers, and I don't think we left the lodge until about 11:30 at night. It was a really good meeting, and it would be totally inappropriate here if I didn't say how awesome it was to see Brother Robert Walk Jr., fellow Midnight Freemason contributor, at the event. We sat next to each other in lodge. It was the first time we've sat in open lodge together. It was a really awesome experience. We had just an excellent time. Thanks for coming, brother. It is always a pleasure to converse and share the room with such an inspiration to Masonry. So, Brother Rob Walk, if you're listening, I want to say thanks. So, right off the bat, let's just get right into this week's piece, which comes from the California Freemason Magazine. It's actually the April-May 2014 issue. And from this one issue, there's actually 2 articles that I would like to read. So, the first one is called Fraternal Culture. Around the world, brethren throughout the globe unite to share and understand the diverse culture of Freemasonry. It's by Michel Simon. A truly global endeavor, from Budapest to Bogota, Mexico City to Maputo, Philadelphia to Prague, Sao Paulo to San Juan. Every 18 months, citizens of these cities and hundreds of others gather in diverse locations around the world. Their purpose is one familiar to Masons everywhere, sharing fraternal knowledge and affection. The World Conference of Regular Masonic Grand Lodges was initiated by a Mexican Grand Lodge in 1995. Its constitutional purpose is to share information and discuss issues that promote the stability, progress, and universality of the craft. The Constitution also requires each meeting to spread out among different continents of the world as regularly as possible. This year's conference is taking place in Romania in May. It will be the first Eastern European supporting global vision, and in 2015, the Grand Lodge of California will host worldwide Masonic leaders at the California Masonic Memorial Temple in San Francisco for the Cornerstone's first return to North America in 7 years. Diplomat of the craft, Thomas Jackson has served as Executive Secretary for the conference for 15 years and has been actively involved in its development. While the Executive Secretary position was originally envisioned as an administrative duty, conducting event marketing and overseeing registration and other logistics, Jackson has put his fraternal leadership skills to use. In addition to handling the original responsibilities, the former Grand Secretary of Pennsylvania has offered himself as an international resource, shepherding the conference into the truly global gathering that it is today. Jackson's present role is perhaps but best described as that of a devoted Masonic diplomat. Albeit without any political aims, he spends much of his year traveling around the world in support of foreign Masonic bodies, working directly with the leadership of each Grand Lodge and immersing himself in a given region's Masonic culture. Jackson provides a range of supported requests from community outreach to organizational guidance and even conflict resolution. For example, when discrepancies arose in election results after Russia's Grand Officer election, it was Jackson who helped smooth over the conflict by communicating the true election results to the rest of the world, helping the elected Russian Grand Master retain his earned legitimacy. But despite the overwhelming success of his outreach efforts, Jackson's overall goal is much larger. He seeks to share his unique experiences to help forge a deeper understanding of Masonry on a global scale. To illustrate the cultural differences between regions, Jackson has identified 5 styles that describe various forms of Masonic operative philosophies. New Masonic worldviews. According to Jackson, a quote-unquote side benefit of the conference's initiative to hold meetings on different continents is that visiting each region lets members gain a first-hand understanding of the cultural forces at play there, including the challenges that local Masons face. For example, in many African countries where Masonry is still a relatively new phenomenon, members must contend with serious public misconceptions about the fraternity. Jackson believes that gaining an understanding of the different situations around the world prompts Masons in more established regions to think outside the box when it comes to solving the similar issues that are innocuous at home. Consider the question, quote-unquote, how can Masons attract new members? In societies where associating with the fraternity is frowned upon, passing on fraternal values can be exceptionally complicated. As another example, how can Masons strengthen public awareness of the fraternity? California Masons would likely have a number of suggestions for doing this at home, but none of those solutions may work in a country where Freemasonry has been banned by government leaders. These are complicated questions without easy answers, but Jackson believes that by joining together as brothers with a common purpose, a solution will eventually take form. Sharing inspiration. In addition to combining Mason's skills for troubleshooting in each region, Jackson believes that the conference's ability to inspire members with success stories is equally valuable, if not more so for some lodges. He believes that the lodges in his home region of North America could particularly benefit from the lessons to be found in Masonry's success outside the continent. This is especially true in terms of community outreach. Latin America Grand Lodges are building hospitals and universities, and in the sense of esteem that is imbued within membership elsewhere. Quote, Freemasonry is in decline within most of North America, but that's not consistent with what's happening around the world. In Eastern Europe, the fraternity is composed of many of that society's leading thinkers. In Africa, 4 presidents are Grand Masters of the Grand Lodges. North American Freemasonry started out at this high level, but we haven't maintained it, Jackson explains. Jackson believes that if American Grand Lodges more actively embrace the conference, dramatic changes may follow. He has a reason to be optimistic. One of his greatest personal successes as an executive secretary involves his work within Latin American lodges. Quote, when I first traveled to Latin America, you would rarely encounter Latin American Masons outside the immediate surrounding countries, Jackson explains. But when those countries began attending the conference, they started to see the value of global Freemasonry. Now, when I travel almost anywhere in the world, Latin American Masons will be there too. The final takeaway from the conference, says Jackson, is education. We are all learning, he explains. This is an opportunity both to understand what global Freemasonry is and to envision what it can be, spanning the globe. Past World Conference locations: 1995, Mexico City, Mexico; 1996, Lisbon, Portugal; 1998, New York City, United States; 1999, Sao Paulo, Brazil; 2001, Madrid, Spain; 2002, New Delhi, India; 2004, Santiago, Chile; 2006, Paris, France; 2008, Washington, D.C.; 2009, Libreville, Gabon; 2011, Cartagena, Colombia; 2012, Chennai, India; 2014, Bucharest, Romania; coming in 2015, San Francisco, USA. The 5 styles of Masonry. Thomas Jackson has used his extensive knowledge of global Masonic culture to develop 5 culturally driven operational philosophies that define Masonry in various parts of the world. He believes that by studying how the culture of each society influences its fraternal culture, members from different parts of the world can gain a deeper understanding of brethren in other countries. The first, philosophical style. This style is defined by attention to selectivity, strict membership requirements, and a stimulus for studying and advancing Masonic philosophy. Social style. This style is defined by a strong social culture where fellowship is a priority and social activities are a focus. Sociological style. In addition to its philosophical base, this style is deeply impacted by the sociology of its environment. Political style. In some countries, Masons tend to be more politically involved than their counterpoints in other countries. And the charitable style. This style is characterized by a strong focus on charitable fundraising. Wondering where parts of the world would fall in the list? Attend the 14th World Conference in San Francisco to learn more. Alright, so that's pretty darn cool. There's going to be a world conference coming back to the United States in San Francisco in 2014. If you're like me, you're already thinking of ways you can scrounge up the money to go, but we'll see what happens. In any case, the next article also deals with this conference and some of the really cool things that go along with it. But before I get into that, I have to go over the various ways that you can support this show. First and foremost, we have our Android, Apple, and Windows 8 apps. What the apps let you do is download each episode, and you can listen to them later. You can also stream them if you'd like, rather than download them. The app is $2, and for that $2, you get access to every episode that we've ever done, just like you do on any other service provider, whether it's Stitcher, whether it's iTunes, however. The main difference being that if you buy the app for $2, you have access to virtually every paper that we've read on the show via PDF through the app. In addition to this, there's also a Masonic wallpaper, and each one is different for each week. So this is episode 148. So if you bought the app, you would essentially have access to 148 different Masonic wallpapers for your mobile device, and that's $2. The second way that you can support this show is by doing a PayPal donation. The way it works is you pick the amount. It's not set in stone at all. You can contribute a quarter, you can contribute $1, $10, whatever you want. And all that money that we get from PayPal, apps, or however you choose to support the show goes right into the show. It doesn't go into my pocket or anything like that. The show is essentially self-sustaining. The third way is through affiliate sales, right? So we have 2 affiliates that we work with. The first is Onnit.com, who sells healthy living, really good supplements, and workout equipment. And I liked their message of being a better human, being optimized. It works well with making good men better. I felt that they had some really great products. I tried them. I liked them. I decided to use them as an affiliate. So if you go to our website, www.wcypodcast.com, and you click on the links for support the show, you will see a banner for Onnit. And you can click that banner. It'll take you to Onnit.com. You do your shopping. At checkout, you type in code WCY. It'll give you an additional 10% off. And they send us a little kickback to the show to help keep the lights on. Now, it wouldn't be Masonic unless I had a Masonic affiliate, right? So we do have a Masonic affiliate, and that is Juan Sepulveda's Freemasonryart.com. Juan Sepulveda, if the name sounds familiar, it's because he's an amazing artist, podcaster, and he's also a co-host on the Masonic Roundtable show. So if you go to Freemasonryart.com, you can buy anything you want, but I highly recommend the amazing aprons that he makes. And you can get 10% off if you type in the coupon code WCY. And if you use that code, he'll also send the show a little piece of the sale in order to help keep the lights on. Again, anytime you use the affiliates, nothing is marked up. It's all the regular costs that it would be normally, with the exception of you went to them through this show. So that's how they show their appreciation, by kicking a little bit back to us. And subsequently, we put that money in an account for the show to use for audio hosting and equipment and all that. So that's how you support the show, and I thank you guys all in advance. So also from this same issue of California Freemason is another feature article, The Freemason's Guide to the World. And it talks a little bit about this new San Francisco global meeting. The Freemason's Guide to the World. In November 2015, global leaders will meet in San Francisco. Their mission? To strengthen fraternal bonds in a changing world. By Laurel Normand. In the 18th and 19th centuries, Freemasonry became a global force. With an open mind and an awareness that he was always among his brothers, the Mason was expected to feel at home in any part of the world. He was a cosmopolite, a citizen of the world. Masonic scholar Jessica Harlan Jacobs writes in her paper, Global Brotherhood, Freemasonry, Empires, and Globalization. Freemasonry thus helped make the world a more interconnected and interdependent place. She says, creating a network that stretched across the world, that cut across traditional boundaries, and that encouraged members to adopt a global frame of reference. Because of this access across borders, the fraternity eased open new channels of information and people, helping pave the way for the world's trading networks and migration flows. And it started doing all this well before the days of telegraphs, steamships, and passports, let alone jet planes and the internet, Harlan Jacob points out. By the exercise of brotherly love, we are taught to regard the whole human species as one family, the high, the low, rich, and the poor, all created by one almighty being and sent into the world for the aid, support, and protection of each other. On this grand principle, Masonry unites men of every country, sect, and opinion. How is this possible? Bringing the world to San Francisco. For Masons, the answer may be obvious, although the brothers that Harlan Jacobs describes sometimes came from cultures and countries worlds apart. The differences between them never overpowered the universal ideas that held them together. The phenomenon of reaching across borders, the striding into new terrain with the confidence that a door will swing open in welcome, is the same phenomenon behind the World Conference of Regular Masonic Grand Lodges. Created with the constitutional purpose to share information and discuss ideas that promote the stability, progress, and universality of the craft Masonry, the first World Conference of Regular Masonic Grand Lodges was held in 1995 in Mexico City. Representatives from 37 Grand Lodges attended. Since it has grown to more than 600 attendees, rotating its location among continents in 18-month intervals, the World Conference brings together Masonic leaders from hundreds of grand jurisdictions worldwide, from Romania to India, Israel to Italy, France to Brazil. It has been a place for global leaders to reaffirm with the press of a hand and the friendly exchange of ideas the very essence of a fraternity without borders. It is a chance for networking and international relations and an opportunity to explore other fraternal cultures in the spirit of Masonic education. It is also a forum for self-examination. In November of 2015, the Grand Lodge of California will host the 14th World Conference at the California Masonic Memorial Temple in San Francisco. The conference theme, which will be discussed and debated over 3 days of keynote speakers, panelists, and a small group workshop, is the universality of Freemasonry. At the conference, as in the lodges throughout the world, this idea is represented by one powerful symbol, the chain of union. Forging the chain. The chain of union is illustrated as a knotted rope in Masonic tracing boards and can be seen encircling the inner walls of a lodge room, just below the ceiling. But it is its members of the lodge that bring this symbol to life. In a ritual often performed after the first degree in parts of the world, members form a circle around the altar and grasp hands in a chain of union, creating a living symbol of universal Masonry. One Masonic handbook from 1798 entitled The Master's Key Through All the Degrees of Freemasons' Lodge paints the picture of a Masonic universality. Quote, "By the exercise of brotherly love, we are taught to regard the whole human species as one family, the high, the low, rich, and poor, all created by one almighty being and sent into the world for the aid, support, and protection of each other. On this grand principle, Masonry unites men of every country, sect, and opinion." End quote. This is the chain of union, the universality of Freemasonry as at its best. It is ingrained in the minds and hearts of Masons from the moment of their initiation. Tolerance, equality, trust, the pursuit of knowledge. Masons everywhere are connected by these values and commitments. Each brother is connected to the next by a shared moral code. He is linked to the chain by a shared willingness, even insistence to ask certain questions. Why am I here? What is my purpose? Who or what should guide me? Not every person asks himself these questions, but every Mason does. Masonry's universality takes many shapes. We can point to it in the fraternity's high standards for its members, of ethics, of behavior, of purposeful and enlightened life, that remain the same in every culture and language. We see it in the Masonic approach to teaching these standards through the shared initiatic experience and the use of symbols. We feel it when a brother talks about the powerful experience of his first degree, or the moment he knelt to take the Master's Oath, or the time his lodge supported him through a personal tragedy. In the information age, we are constantly dogged by a feeling of interconnectedness on a superficial level. Through Facebook and Instagram, news alerts, and viral videos, Masonry's quality of connection is something else entirely. At the conclusion of the chain of union ritual, when the brothers at last drop their hands and separate, the bonds between them do not break. There is a reason for this, and it courses through every lodge in the world. These universalities in whatever language and custom unlock profound, challenging, and moving experiences for Freemasons. Shared experiences sow trust. And so, from their first meeting, two brothers know each other. They know that they have each asked themselves the same questions. They know that they are each toiling in the same path to self-betterment. They have each declared that at the heart of everything, they are of one family. Perhaps it is in these ways that Masonry has historically cleared a way for friendships that, in other contexts, would be unlikely, uncomfortable, or even impossible. For all of their differences, one man sees himself reflected in the other, and that is a place to start. Testing the theory. In many cases, Freemasonry's universality is a theory that proves itself. Imagine the variety of men, tuxedoed to t-shirted, who call each other brother. However, the World Conference is an opportunity to not just acknowledge Masonry's universality, but measure it, its progress, and its failures. The conference will examine the universality of Masonry as it is today, what it means to modern Masons, why it's important, and in what ways it is and is not evident throughout the worldwide fraternity. There is an important distinction to make between diversity and universality. A universal Masonry need not and should not be homogeneous Masonry. Much of the fraternity's significance comes from the differences it encompasses. Its diversity keeps it relevant and nimble. Its unique heritage and histories give it depth. One of the greatest gifts of Masonry is conciliating true friendship among persons that must have remained at a perpetual distance. At the World Conference, Masonic leaders will be challenged to go beyond their own experiences, look at the fraternity from a different angle, and seek a deeper understanding of their neighbors. A question of universality. After all, the chain of union is made by many forges: charity, tolerance, freedom, faith, but that's not all. Freemasonry is a modern organization and, moreover, one that spans the globe. Such organizations run on more than ideas. Take, for instance, structure. What difference does it make, if any, that Grand Lodges maintain different terms to office and organizational structures or ritual? All of Masonry insists on a shared initiatic experience, but what does it mean that some jurisdictions accept just one ritual and others allow several variations? There is a question of membership. Each Grand Lodge may have slightly different requirements for applicants, such as age, but beyond demographics, does the global fraternity at least share certain standards? Are there qualities that one lodge looks for the same as another? In perhaps every Grand Lodge, there is a push and pull between quality and quantity. Some lodges strive for membership rolls hundreds of names long. Others recommend a friendly split once a lodge reaches 50 brothers. Some U.S. lodges confer all 3 degrees in one day. In other jurisdictions, the process takes years. What can we learn from such contrast? How can lodges be selective without becoming elitist? In such questions, the philosophical intersects with the practical. Tradition runs up against reality. The first Freemasons would have difficulty imagining a day when prospects would approach the fraternity not through a family member or trusted friend, but a Google search and email. Yet in many countries, particularly the United States, this is the case. Technology is carving a path through our culture, changing the landscape around Freemasonry. What role will it play in strengthening communicating among Masons, building relationships between Grand Lodges, and forming an interface between the fraternity and the public? As technology marches forward, how will it change the fraternity? Mahmoud writes that, quote, profane structures of social organization like gender and class shaped the esoteric world of Freemasonry, end quote, profoundly. The world outside lodge walls is often divided by class, race, and religion. Such divisions can intrude inside the lodge, too. On a global scale, where is Masonry on matters of tolerance? Some Grand Lodges remain strictly Christian Brotherhood. Some have a record of denying applicants of certain races. In California, it was only a few decades ago that a provision was adopted to allow alternate holy writings. Are there patterns to this progress? What challenges still exist? Historically, Freemasons have played a role in shaping ideas about freedom. Around the globe, the fraternity has different perspectives on whether and how to extend this legacy to modern times. If Masons are poised to contribute to the global conversation on freedom, should this be an organizational directive or an individual choice? A final example is charity. At the heart of Freemasonry is each Mason's promise to deliver relief to his brothers. It's a promise that begot a fraternity, and it still runs through the chain of union today, transforming men into brothers. In some countries, this sentiment has extended even beyond the fraternity. Masonic organizations now give millions in charitable dollars every year, touching communities around the world. What are the different views on this approach? Can a more institutional form of Masonic charity coexist with a Mason's obligation to his fellow Mason? Does it diminish or heighten a sense of individual responsibility? In sum, what does charity mean in Masonry today? The answers from one jurisdiction to another and from one Mason to the next will surely vary. A universal Masonry is, by definition, diverse. Unity has room for differences. At the World Conference, Masonic leaders will have a vantage point on these many facets of modern Freemasonry. Together, they can begin to answer the question, in a changing fraternity, what remains universal? Strengthening fraternal bonds in a changing world. The question that the World Conference asks are as much a part of Masonry as the square encompasses. They represent the winding staircase, the 7 liberal arts and sciences, the very lifelong education that Freemasonry promotes. Masons are taught to be intentional and self-reflective. They are trained to ask themselves, where am I headed? Is this acceptable? If not, how do I want to move forward? And so the 14th World Conference will ask, what is and isn't universal about Masonry? Where do we go from here? How can we strengthen fraternal bonds in a changing world? By asking these questions, appealing to experts, and sitting earnestly in a discussion about the many possible answers, attendees reaffirm that the universal bonds of Masonry are real and relevant. Such bonds are not merely ornamental or convenient. They are forged from a willingness to work side by side for the betterment of all. As Brother Benjamin Franklin wrote, quote, the wages of a Mason are earned and paid in their dealings with one another. sympathy that begets sympathy, kindness begets kindness, helpfulness begets helpfulness. End quote. Masonry shaped the world with its moral ideas and revolutionary inclusiveness. Those qualities opened the fraternity up to a worldwide membership, a global network, which in turn made Masonry a headlining force in history, instrumental in the formation of civil societies, early globalization, and even the spread of democracy. Today, Harlan Jacobs still sees universality as a key to Masonry's greatness. Quote, 21st century Masons, if they absorb the true meaning of fraternalism, are cosmopolites. Perhaps more than most people in the world today, they are squarely situated at the intersection of the local and the global. End quote. What will be written about Masonry in the 21st century? Will it be the account of many individual organizations working on a local level, or will it be rooted once again in universality and in the profound impact that can come from global vision? The 14th World Conference in San Francisco will point the way. The 13th World Conference in Bucharest. The National Grand Lodge of Romania will host the 13th session of the World Conference to be held on May 14th through the 17th, 2014 in Bucharest. And of course, this has already passed. Bucharest is Romania's capital and its largest city. Its wide, tree-lined boulevards and glorious Belle Epoque buildings earned it the nickname Little Paris in the 1930s. This is the first time that the World Conference of Regular Masonic Grand Lodges will take place in Central and in Eastern Europe. Romania has one of the largest Masonic populations in this part of Europe, second only to Turkey. The Grand Lodge of California looks forward to attending the 13th World Conference and continuing the work on global scale for the stability, progress, and universality of Freemasonry. Register for the 14th World Conference in San Francisco. The 14th World Conference is an important forum for Masonic leaders from all parts of the globe to exchange ideas, strengthen fraternal bonds, and unite the fraternity. For California Masons, it offers the privilege of representing Golden State Masonry as we welcome our brothers from other jurisdictions. It is also a rare chance to experience worldwide Masonry in action right in our own backyard. Be part of this historic event. Online registration and conference information will be open in May 2014 at WCRMGL.com. All right, guys, again, I really hope you guys found that information really helpful. I'm going to try my darndest to be out there for that World Conference. It's too big and too cool to pass up. It's at the end of 2015, which means the Masonic year will be up for me. That's just right around the corner. I do apologize for not including a famous Freemason this week. The show did run a little bit longer than I had planned. I do have a cold. Kind of working through it. So thanks for listening. Find us on Facebook. Check us out on Twitter at Whence. You can find us on Google Plus at the email address wcypodcast@gmail.com. Please don't forget about the Midnight Freemasons blog, which is at midnightfreemasons.org. We have 3 articles every week, always brand new. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays we publish those. You can follow it via Facebook, or you can follow it direct email, or you can just find us on Facebook again, WCY Podcast or Whence Came You on Facebook, and I always share the articles there also. Please don't forget about the Masonic Roundtable. That's a new show with Brother Jason Richards, Brother John Ruark, past master, myself, Brother Nick Johnson, past master, and Brother Juan Sepulveda. And occasionally we have some special guests. You can check out that show at www.themasonicroundtable.com. All right, guys, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson.